Welcome to Books and Beyond with That Guy Jay. I am your host, That Guy Jay. And to start things off today, if you could hit any of the buttons like, comment, subscribe, it would mean the world to me. It really helps push the video out there. Thank you guys so much for the support. But let's just get right into the watch of the day. Today's watch of the day is the Addie's Dive 1970. This is an homage to the Seiko Captain Willard. The Seiko Captain Willard was popularized by Martin Sheen in the movie Apocalypse Now. It was the watch he wore throughout the film. This is a Chinese brand. This was my first mechanical watch. I spoke about this one in my episode about how I got into watch collecting. This originally came on a stainless steel bracelet, but I have it on a waffle comb pattern rubber strap because that makes it appear more like it did in the movie. In the movie, it was also on a rubber strap. And this has been a great beginner's dive watch. I know that homages can be a little bit controversial if they're direct copies. This does have some slight variations. It does use a Seiko movement. Overall, it's a fantastic watch that I got at an amazing price, and it was a great introduction into the world of mechanical watches. Moving on from that, let's get into the main topic of this week's episode. This week, I wanted to talk about hobbies as kind of a broad subject. Since starting this podcast, it's given me a lot of time to consider my hobbies, think more about the hobbies I've had in the past, hobbies that I'd like to get into. And one thing that always comes into my mind is this concept of kind of the hustle culture. And I have this slight feeling like in some ways, the hustle and grind culture has killed hobbies for a lot of people. I think especially if you're into any type of creative hobby, you're going to inevitably hear, when are you going to monetize this? How are you going to monetize this? You need to make money with that. And while I think if you're creating something, it can be a compliment for someone to say that you should be making money from it, it also can become this immense pressure that takes away from the enjoyment of the hobby. I think that life is stressful enough. People are tired. People work a lot. I think that everyone should absolutely be able to just have a hobby that they do for fun. You don't have to become an expert in everything, and you don't have to make money from everything. A hobby can be extremely meaningful without any added income. I think with the current state of our economy and late stage capitalism, there is this constant pressure, though, to hustle. When you're not working, you're supposed to be grinding on your side hustle. Not everyone can be an entrepreneur, and not everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, and not every hobby is monetizable. Not every hobby can be profitable, nor should you only think about your hobbies in a light where you make money. I think that turning a hobby into a job is probably the quickest way to burn out from that hobby and stop enjoying it. I think there's countless examples of this. I think we probably all know somebody who has experienced this, where they made their hobby their job and they thought it was going to be their dream, and it just absolutely kills the enjoyment for them, and they never enjoy it the same way. And either they continue to do it because they need the money and they don't like it, or they just stop doing the hobby altogether, and not only do they lose any small income they were making, but they also lose the pleasure and the enjoyment of doing something that they loved. I also think that the constant pressure to monetize hobbies puts an added level of stress on you because you feel like you have to go from beginner to expert as quickly as possible. And this is something that I talked about when I discussed perfectionism, where I already have issues where I think that I should be an expert at something right away, and if I'm not, then that means I'm not meant to do it. Now, if you add in the pressure of having to make money while you do it, it just compounds that, and it just makes your hobby a cause of stress instead of a cause of peace and fun and relaxation. I think back to about 10 years ago, I got pretty into photography. I absolutely loved photography. I went through a couple cameras. I ended up with a Canon 70D, which I absolutely loved. I had a couple of lenses, nothing super high end, but they were nice, and I had my camera bag. And my favorite thing to do back then, I brought my camera bag with me pretty much everywhere. I walked as part of my commute to work through Manhattan, through Central Park, and I loved street photography. I loved just walking around and finding things that looked interesting to me, trying to find unique and cool ways to frame it. And I took a lot of pictures, and they were all just for me. And anytime people found out about this hobby, I was constantly asked when I was going to make it a business. And, oh, you should make that your side job. That should be your weekend job, whatever the case may be. And one of the problems in my head was because at the time I was like, yeah, maybe I should do that. But the only real way to make money in photography, especially when you're kind of starting out, is going to be through event photography, eventually working to wedding photography. And that wasn't something that particularly interested me. I think there's a lot of pressure in event photography, especially wedding photography. If you mess up, I mean, you're literally potentially ruining someone's biggest day of their life. That wasn't an added stress that I needed in my life at the time. And I really just liked street photography, where there's not a whole bunch of money in that unless you become big on social media and you can sell some of your prints. It's not a very lucrative business, but more than anything, it just added this pressure to it where when I was going out, I was thinking about ways. I was like, oh, what can I get a shot of that I could try and sell? And it really wasn't fun. And for me, the fun part of photography was partially just exploring New York City because I absolutely love New York. I would go to new neighborhoods, I would go to parks. I would just look for things that you wouldn't normally look for, look at the architecture from different angles. And I really just enjoyed the process of trying to get better at not only taking pictures, but I was also learning to use Lightroom. So I was learning how to edit the pictures. And for me, the process was the fun part. Not even necessarily the end result picture, but just the process of finding it, framing it, getting the shot that I wanted, and then figuring out a good edit for it in Lightroom to make it look at its absolute best. I don't think that many of my pictures would have had an appeal to anyone else. It's kind of one of those things where, especially nowadays when everybody has an iPhone that's capable of taking great pictures in itself, nobody wants a picture of a beach that you took a picture of. They want a picture of the beach that they took a picture of. And ultimately, I never tried to monetize photography, and I'm glad that I didn't. I've since gotten out of the hobby. It's something that I would very much like to get back into in the future. I'm hoping at some point I can get myself a decent camera again. I'd really like to try the Sony ecosystem this time. I almost did last time, but I ended up going Canon. But when I get back into it, it's definitely not going to be something that I think about monetizing. It's just not in the cards for me. It's not something I'm interested in doing. And I think that's okay. And I think we need to talk about that more, that it is okay to just have a hobby for the simple fact that you enjoy it. You're allowed to enjoy things in life. Not everything has to be about money. I know the current state of the world makes it feel like everything is about money, and to a certain extent, everything is about money. But it's okay to have a hobby that ultimately only costs you money but brings you joy. I also think that a lot of this hustle culture is also pretty toxic because ultimately what the people are selling is just kind of courses. They make their money off of courses by telling you that they can teach you how to grind and hustle to make money, but ultimately they're the only ones that make money. And I think it becomes super toxic and super predatory very, very quickly. There are plenty of people out there that their dream is to make their hobby their full-time job or to be a viable side business. And that's absolutely fine. And I think we should support people that are trying to do that. I think we should support creatives, and I think that we should help them out and prop them up. But not everybody has to want that. Not everybody has to have the same dream. I think another negative is that with so much out there available for cheap, when people do create, it's going to end up costing more, and then they run into the wall of people telling them that they're charging too much. I think people who are creative and are creating things, they've done the research. They know what fair going rates are for handmade items or whatever it is that they're into. They know what the materials cost, and ultimately they do need to pay themselves some type of wage if they're going to make it a viable business. And I think a lot of people poo-poo at the prices of people who are just starting out with stuff like that, which is also discouraging for people to even give it a try if it is something they're interested in. If we're going to support small businesses and new businesses, then I think we should support them. We shouldn't be asking for freebies. We shouldn't be asking for discounts. We shouldn't be doing any of those things. Because like I said, if there are people that want to monetize their art or their hobby, then I think that it's perfectly okay to be supportive of that. I think we also just have to support the flip side of that. That is that some people don't want to do that. Some people will never have an interest in that. Some people are perfectly content going to an office, working a 9 to 5, and living what a lot of people would consider just a regular job. And that's okay too. There's nothing wrong with that. Not everybody is going to be a millionaire, and not everybody is going to have a side business that blows up and makes them rich and famous. Not everybody has that dream. Some people literally just want to live a peaceful life. And again, that's okay. It's okay if you want to get into entrepreneurship and be hyper competitive with all that stuff. Everybody's different though. And I think that it really, really takes away from the enjoyment of people's hobbies when their friends, family, or even online, they're constantly being bombarded with comments of they need to monetize it, or they need to sell their artwork, or they need to sell whatever it is they may be doing. And I think a lot of times it might be well intentioned. People mean it as a compliment, like, oh, your photography is so good that you could sell it. But that is a lot different than hearing, oh my God, you have to start a business. You need to sell that. It doesn't have the same outcome, I don't think, at least in my opinion. I think another aspect of this is in the modern world, people are so busy and people are also communicating so much through social media and through their phones because of the convenience of it. I think we should encourage anybody who wants to get into a hobby to do so just for the community aspect of it. I know I bring up community a lot in these episodes because it's something that I've realized is very important, and I think it's something that myself and a lot of people have been lacking for years. Most hobbies are a fantastic way to meet new people with similar interests, to get involved with some type of community. Even if it's art and creating and something that's more solo oriented, there's classes, there's workspaces you can go to where there's other people. There's all sorts of variations of hobbies where you can get involved and meet other people. And I think that's something that should be highly encouraged. And again, I think the constant pressure to make money takes away from that. And I think it discourages people from getting out there and trying new things. I think it discourages people from being beginners. And I think it discourages people from enjoying the learning journey and being okay with the fact that not everybody has to be an expert or the best at something to enjoy it. You don't have to be the best photographer in the world to enjoy photography. You don't have to be the best artist in the world to enjoy painting, drawing, whatever your form of art may be. I don't think this is something that I've always been great at. I think that there have been times where I was discouraged by not being an expert at something and I gave up on things, and I wish I had stuck with them for years because I would be further along than I am now. But I am slowly starting to realize that I need to enjoy the learning process. I need to embrace the learning process. I need to learn to love being a beginner, and I need to myself learn that it's okay to not be an expert and you can enjoy something even if you're bad at it. And ultimately, hobbies are just supposed to be there for our own enjoyment, our own fun, and our own peace. Like I said, life is super stressful. The world is crazy, and in many ways, it's on fire currently. And if you have something that you love doing, if you have something that gives you a couple hours of fun a week and can take your mind off of the stresses of your job, of your life, of parenting, of whatever it may be, then go for it. You should absolutely do it, and you shouldn't feel any pressure to someday have to monetize it. If you decide to monetize it someday and it works out, that's fantastic. Fully will support that for anybody, but don't feel like you have to. Don't let hustle culture and grind culture grind you down and take away your enjoyment and make you feel bad about yourself because you aren't making money from your hobbies. Do the things you love, enjoy the things you do, and don't worry about the financial aspect of it. Now, at the same time, don't go and be irresponsible and spend thousands of dollars you don't have just to get into a hobby. I wouldn't recommend that. But it's okay if a hobby costs money and the only return on your investment is fun. That's fine. I think ultimately we could all use a little bit more fun in our life. We could use a little bit more camaraderie and companionship and community within these activities, whether it be getting involved in a sport that you used to like, whether it be taking an art class to try something new and meet other people who are interested in that. I know it's hard. Everybody's schedule is full, but I think we should all be trying to find some outlets that give us some type of peace. And yeah, ultimately, I think whatever your hobbies are, enjoy them. Have fun with them. Grow at any pace that you're comfortable with. Don't feel like you have to be an expert tomorrow. Don't feel like you have to make a website next week to sell your art or to sell whatever skill you're trying to learn. But I would love to hear in the comments, what are some of your favorite hobbies? And have you ever experienced this? Have you ever had a friend, a family, or someone online pressuring you to monetize something that you just do for fun? Let's keep the discussion going in the comments. As always, thank you again for taking a little bit of time out of your week to join me on the podcast, and I will be back again next week. And again, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and like and share. Thanks so much. See you next time.